Picture this. You're a kid on the shore, sculpting the perfect sandcastle. Every tower balanced, every arch precise. Strangers stop to admire it, yet before the sun sets, a single wave wipes it from existence. That's the cruel paradox we're tackling today. Video games that did everything right, visionary design, critical praise, even industry veterans at the helm, only to be swallowed by forces they couldn't control. Timing, marketing misfires, corporate hubris, plain bad luck. Each wave has its own shape, but the outcome is the same. Greatness buried under the tide, so grab your controller, or at least your curiosity. We're diving into 8 titles that soared artistically, yet crashed commercially, and the hidden lessons every studio, gamer, and dreamer can learn from their demise. The pitch sounded bulletproof. What if Call of Duty went full fantasy and slung spells instead of bullets? Ascendant Studios secured an $80 million budget, EA tossed another $45 million at marketing, and BioWare's own Michael Kirkbride punched up the lore. Unreal Engine 5 visuals melted GPUs. Early testers raved about its kaleidoscopic spell combos. But when launch week arrived, crickets. EA's ads dropped into the algorithmic void. The title, Immortals of Avium, failed to signal anything, and the release calendar was jam-packed with proven franchises. Reviews were decent, yet the player count barely dented Steam's top 100. Within 2 months, the studio furloughed half its staff. Why did a polished, creative FPS vanish? Because ambition is only half the spell. The other half is clarity. Gamers scrolling a storefront need an instant mental picture. Immortals of Aveum could have been Spellstorm or Magefire. Instead, it read like fantasy lorem ipsum. By the time word of mouth trickled out, hey, this is actually good, the wave had already receded. That wasn't the only shooter drowned by bad timing. Respawn's sequel wasn't just good, it was a revelation. A gravity-defying campaign full of time-hopping puzzles, a bromance between pilot and mech, and multiplayer that felt like parkour chess. Critics handed out 9s and 10s like candy. Then EA wedged its launch date between Battlefield 1, October 21st, 2016, and Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare, November 4th. Imagine debuting your indie film the same weekend Marvel and Star Wars drop sequels. Good luck getting a marquee. Players only budget so many $60 purchases per month. Titanfall 2 became the maybe-later title that most never circled back to. Sales landed at roughly half the original's numbers, even though the original was multiplayer only and far less refined. Respawn pivoted to Apex Legends, and the series went dormant, its potential for a third act stranded in development limbo. Timing isn't just everything. Sometimes it's the only thing, and our next victim learned that lesson in the most literal sense. Raven Software's swan song as an independent studio fused Soviet sci-fi with BioShock DNA. A chrono-manipulating glove let you rust enemies to dust or rewind collapsing bridges into pristine pathways. The pacing was brisk, the set pieces inventive, the twists legitimately clever. Yet Activision's marketing budget trickled away to bigger fish, Call of Duty again, leaving Singularity to whisper into the void. Reviewers loved it, most gamers never heard its name. Sales flatlined, and Raven was reassigned to support duty on annual shooters. Creative risk without marketing muscle is like a signal flare in a hurricane. Brilliant for a heartbeat, invisible the next. And they weren't the only ones whose quality got smothered by perception. Square Enix's Avengers had soured fans only a year prior, so when trailers for Guardians rolled out, featuring stiff animations and quippy banter, audiences yawned. Pre-orders lagged. Reviewers, however, discovered a narrative gem, heartfelt arcs, laugh-out-loud dialogue, and neon vistas that felt ripped from a prog rock album cover. Word of mouth turned positive, but the damage was done. Square labeled sales underwhelming, slashed the price within 3 months, then sold the entire Western division to Embracer. Guardians became proof that even superheroes can't outpunch bad first impressions. Turns out, even cosmic misfits need a hype machine. Fire Axes tried to fuse three audiences: hardcore tactics fans, card game aficionados, and Marvel devotees. The overlap? A sliver. Add in a marketing cycle that emphasized card decks, scaring strategy purists, and deep friendship sim mechanics, confusing casual Marvel fans, and you had a recipe for retail frostbite. The irony? Under the hood, the combat sings. Every hand of cards feels like puzzle jazz. Every boss fight a chessboard on fire. Yet the game's identity crisis, is this XCOM, Hearthstone, or Persona, kept shoppers at arm's length. When you blend oil and water, don't expect everyone to drink it. And sometimes what kills a game isn't gameplay at all. It's the ledger. On paper, Amalur had everything: Todd McFarlane's art direction, R.A. Salvatore's lore bible, combat that felt like God of War inside an open world. Critics praised its fluid sword staff spell systems and sprawling skill trees. Sales reached a respectable 1.3 million. Problem? The studio owed Rhode Island $75 million. To break even, they needed triple the sales. Lawsuits flew, paychecks bounced, and the dream dissolved. Years later, THQ Nordic scooped up the IP for pennies, but the original team was long gone. Sometimes the iceberg isn't a design flaw, it's a balance sheet too heavy to float. Yet for some studios, being too different was the heavier anchor. Let's turn ammo into living critters. That single sentence sums up the glorious weirdness of Stranger's Wrath. You're a bounty hunter, loading chipmunk-like chippunks, buzzing fuzzles, and explosive boom bats into a double crossbow, then lassoing outlaws for cash. Critics adored it. Marketing dollars were non-existent. Only approximately 600,000 copies sold, far below the million-plus needed. Oddworld inhabitants shuttered big projects, pivoted to remasters, and the franchise's boldest experiment became its financial tombstone. Sometimes being a unicorn in a horse race just means no one bets on you. But the rarest tragedy is when a masterpiece ships too late to matter at all. Sega's answer to Final Fantasy VII was breathtaking. A rail shooter reborn as a 4-disc RPG, aerial dragon combat married to tactical menu commands, a desolate world sung by ancient choirs. Development, however, was brutal. Reports claim 2 team members literally lost their lives to nonstop crunch. By the time the game launched in 1998, Sega had already written off the Saturn. Only a few thousand English copies were pressed. Reviewers called it transcendent. Scalpers call it a gold mine at $600 a disc today. It wasn't poor design, bad marketing, or even fatigue. It was corporate abandonment, a perfect sandcastle built at low tide. And that brings us to the shoreline of our story. Every title we've explored proves the same cruel equation. Quality does not equal security. A game can innovate, polish, and even earn critical love, yet still vanish if any invisible domino falls. Marketing, timing, budget, perception, or plain bad luck. Silver lining. Each of these failures left fingerprints on future hits. Titanfall 2's mobility bled into Apex Legends. Singularity's time glove echoes through countless indie shooters. Even when the wave destroys the castle, grains of sand drift down the coast and seed new creations.